Welcome to Poetry with Shing, where we uncover the beauty behind poetry. In today's episode, we'll be looking at During Wind and Rain by Thomas Hardy, and our question will be to write a critical commentary on the poem During Wind and Rain by Thomas Hardy, considering in detail ways in which our response is shaped by the poet's form, style, and language. Without further ado, let's begin. During Wind and Rain by Thomas Hardy is a song-like poem, which conveys the message of how the happiness experienced in life is impermanent, and the inevitability of death regardless of one's status. Hardy portrays the impermanence of happiness through contrasting happy domestic experiences of a family to the sadness in the last lines of each stanza. The imagery of nature, which can be repeatedly seen throughout the poem, shows the inevitable cycle of life and change of the seasons that everyone has to experience, and the song-like structure of the poem conveys the repetitive nature of death and decay and life. Hardy conveys the impermanence of happiness by contrasting the happiness with sadness as the seasons change, intercepting the happiness the family experiences. In the first stanza, vivid imagery of a group of people singing together, with voices ranging from treble to tenor to bass, reveals that there is harmony between people, and gives a sense of familiarity and belonging that the people experience. However, as there is a build-up of the happiness they experience through the use of ellipses, there is an interruption with the line, "Ah no, the years old," suggesting that time has passed, and the happiness has been reminded that it is impermanent, having been interrupted by the imagery of sick leaves reeling down in throngs. So there's an interruption of happiness. The sick leaves hint at death and decay, which conveys sadness, a drastic contrast with the happiness and harmony the family experienced before. Similarly, in the second stanza, people of different ages with elders and juniors, elders and juniors occupy themselves with domestic activities of tending to the garden, which symbolizes life. The lament by the poet through the line, "Ah no, the years," is repeated here again, interrupting the happiness, to introduce the image of white storm birds winging across. The white storm birds are symbols for death, as white is the color used during funerary rites and often associated with death. Storm birds are also known to be able to predict when a storm is coming. Thus, the birds are a form of foreshadowing that something tragic will happen in the near future, giving the stanza a foreboding tone. Although there is impermanence in happiness, the people in the poem do not seem to realize it, and the poet recognizes this as he laments about the passing of time, seemingly detached from what is happening with the people in the poem. The poet conveys the message that many choose not to acknowledge the inevitability of death and decay, but instead choose to focus on happiness they experience instead. This continues even till the end of the poem, when the happiness experienced as they move to a new house is juxtaposed with the sadness of the people ultimately dying, as the raindrop plows down their carved names. From the stanzas, the juxtaposition in each stanza is apparent, and brings the flimsiness of happiness to light, and the finality of death and decay. So this is the gravestone. So there's a juxtaposition. The negative connotations associated with the imagery of nature not only juxtapose with the happiness in life, but also conveys the message that the passing of time is inevitable, ultimately leading to the end of life. So the passing of time is inevitable. The passing of time is apparent in the change of the seasons with each stanza. In the first stanza, sick leaves reel down in throngs, symbolizing the start of autumn, when life starts to cease and enter a state of hibernation. It is also the end of the life cycle of the tree, as its decaying and sickly leaves shed. In the second stanza, white storm birds wing across the sky, hinting that winter is approaching, as the birds migrate to a warmer place. In the third stanza, a rotten rose is ripped from the wall, marking the end of spring, the season when the flowers bloom the most. Furthermore, roses symbolize beauty, and it is a symbol of impermanence, as beauty is impermanent, and beauty is also temporal. This message is further emphasized by the alliteration of rotten rose is ripped, showing that even the most beautiful things will die. The seasonal cycle depicted in this poem represents the cycle of life, and the changing of the seasons represent the progressing of the life cycle, showing that time will pass and death will be the end that everyone will meet with the passing of time. The pattern of life, death, and rebirth can be seen through the song-like structure of the poem. The lines of the poem are not flushed to one side, hinting at the fluidity of life. As you can see, the lines are not flushed, so there's a fluidity of life and the fragility of the fluidness and movement and change that we experience in life. The repeated refrain of "ah no, the years," as you can see here and here, brings a song-like quality to the poem. It also symbolizes the passing of time and that the cycle of life will keep repeating, just like the refrain in each stanza. However, despite the sadness that death brings, this poem has a tone of calm acceptance to the beauty of life and the brevity of life. So there's a calm acceptance of life's brevity. This can be seen through the ABAB rhyme scheme maintained throughout the poem. This rhyme scheme provides the poem a rhythm, and there is also a note of finality in the last line, as plows in the last line rhymes with house in the first line, symbolizing a sense of completeness in the life cycle. Ultimately, the poet recognizes the inevitability of death and how happiness is impermanent. However, instead of sadness, the poet finds the equilibrium between happiness and sadness, life and death, and accepts the inevitability calmly. That's all for today's episode. Hope that you enjoyed it. Thank you and goodbye.